Before we jump into today's episode, let me set the scene for you. Picture this. It's the 1900s. You bought a pack of cigarettes, and inside is a little rectangle of cardboard. No stats on the back, no holograms, just a hand-drawn image. It's a ball player and maybe some tobacco dust that's still stuck to the edges. Today, those cards are like gold to collectors. My guest, Brent, from the channel @BrewingCards, is a guy who's been making TikTok videos about one of the most iconic sets in baseball history, the T206. If you've never heard of it, don't worry, you will. And if you have, get ready to learn more. Let's talk tobacco cards and the stories hidden in century-old cardboard today on Rounders, A History of Baseball in America. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode. I am your host, Jeff Lambert. I am very, very pleased to be joined by Brent from the TikTok channel Brewing Cards today to talk about tobacco cards, specifically from 1900 to 1911, also known as the T206 set. Am I getting that right, Brent?
That's correct. T206.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Jeffrey.
I came across your channel while I was browsing TikTok. Just organically, it popped up. I was fascinated by a lot of the images that you were sharing, the cards in your collection. And I'm excited to get into this period of history, not only for modern card collectors, but baseball history enthusiasts who may not know a lot about these precursors to, the modern sets that we have today. And that's where I'd love to start, Brent. For someone who's never heard of a tobacco card, can you walk us through what they are and why they were made in the first place?
Well, they're small, like advertisements or tokens with that one with the cigarette packs. Previously, they would include things like flags of countries, birds, animals, pirates, all kinds of different pictures were on the cards. And in 1909, the American Tobacco Company started putting baseball players on it, and it really became very popular, especially with little kids. There's actually articles you can find on the internet with people lamenting about little boys, hanging around stores for the cards out of the tobacco cards. So it was a big draw for young children at the time, and they were released from 1909 to 1911.
Now, you have what's known as the T206 set. That's considered, from what I read, the holy grail of tobacco cards. What makes this set so iconic compared to other vintage baseball card sets that might be out there?
A big factor is it was released for 3 years, or for almost 3 years total. There's a lot of cards of them out there. It's a big set. It has big stars, big players, and it really started the collecting craze, especially with kids in the early 20th century. But the big factor is it has the granddaddy card of all cards, which is the Honus Wagner T206 card, the most valuable card in the baseball card hobby. That is part of the set. So we'll talk about that a little later, I'm sure. So that's a big factor. That, and like I said, there's a lot of cards. It's a really cool set. There's great artwork in it, and there's different ways to collect it. There's a lot of nuances within the set that different collectors have chosen different routes to collect the set instead of taking it all on and collecting the entire set. It's such a big undertaking. We call the set the Monster. Total, there's 524 cards in the set. Most people consider the set complete at 520 cards. And the reason is there's 4 cards that are just really unattainable from a price point for most collectors. One of those 4, of course, being the Honus Wagner card.
As a collector, how did you go about finding these cards to be able to build this set?
So I ran upon it. Got back into collecting probably about 15 years ago, and I happened across a website called Net54 Baseball. And their passion there is the T206 cards. Never had them. At that time, I was just trying to buy cards I couldn't afford when I was a kid. But eventually, I ended up buying my first T206 card, which is a Detroit Tiger. I'm a Detroit Tiger fan, so I bought a card of Donnie Bush. That's my first T206 card. And that's kind of how I walked into it. And then from then, it kind of snowballed.
And where is your collection as of today?
Well, I've completed the 520. I finished the last card last August. I got the 520th card. I will not chase the other 4. 3 are completely ridiculous amount of money. And the other one, I just couldn't see shelling out the amount of money required to get it. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, I've completed. I'll upgrade periodically. I still collect my tigers. I'm actually trying to get a separate tiger to keep my tiger team set separate from my T206 set, which is tough because there's 4 tie cobs, and the tie cobs are one of the higher priced cards in the set.
Sure. Well, what are we talking about in terms of rarity here, Brent? How easy is it to find an authentic card from the T206 set? Excuse me.
So a regular common player in a very poor gray condition, it's very easy to find. They're all over eBay. Sometimes you go to card shows, you can see them. Most card shows really don't deal with them because you have more of the vintage tops or the more modern cards. eBay is really an easy way to do it. There's plenty of them out there. That's one thing great about this set. It's readily available for you to chase.
Now, before we jump into the visuals, and I encourage the podcast listeners, check out the companion video on YouTube so you can see some of what Brent's going to be showing here. Brent, what would be some of the distinguishing factors of a tobacco card compared to a modern day baseball card? What would the visuals be like in terms of the difference?
So tobacco cards were inserted in packs of tobacco and basically cigarettes. And back in the early 20th century, there were much smaller packs than you'd see today as far as modern packs. So the real quick thing you see is the size. They're drastically smaller than a modern card. I don't remember the size offhand. It's basically about 1.5 to 2.25 inches.
Okay.
So it's smaller than a modern card. For this particular set, the T206 set, the backs of the card is the advertisement of the tobacco. There are no statistics. There is no information about the player. So like I said, the real factor here was the promotion of the brand of the tobacco and the cigarettes to the customers, more so than the baseball players.
Now, you mentioned the American Tobacco Company was the first one to start doing this as a trend, correct?
Yes. Well, they weren't the first. There were some in the 1800s, the 19th century. So there were some other companies doing it, but they were really the first one to put a large set of baseball, really about the time when baseball became very popular. This is the time when baseball was, was the nation's, sport. And there's so many people interested in the sport versus the other sports we have today. There's a competition for it. Baseball and I think pretty much boxing was all you had back then as far as the premier sports.
So without further ado, I think this would be a great opportunity for us to jump into looking at some of the distinguished pieces of your collection to be able to let people see what some of these tobacco cards look like from this set. So again, for those of you who are listening to the audio version, we'll give descriptions of what we're going to be showing, but I would encourage you check out the video companion so you can see some of what Brent here has to offer. So Brent's actually going to share his screen. We're going to take a look at some of the progression of cards, some of the examples from his collection. So Brent, I'll hand it over to you. Let's start with taking a look at just what a card from this T206 set would look like.
Well, first, let's a little bit of the timeline with the cards. The back of the cards, I presented some. I've shown here the Piedmonts. They have the series, 150 series, 350, and then the higher series cards. So they started releasing in 1909, and they released them all the way through to 1911.
Now, the fronts of these cards that show the players, Brent, were there certain poses that were used? How did they get this right? Did we have an artist microscopically painting these based on an actual lithograph? How were these created?
Well, lithograph is correct, and there is definitely some artwork involved. But all the pictures you see are pulled from actual photographs. And what I've put on the screen here, these are some examples of some action poses. So you can see kind of where they took the actual pose and put it on the card, and the backgrounds obviously have been changed throughout the set. Sometimes you have cards with a sunset, and that's very popular with a lot of collectors. And then the very big part of the set is the portraits, and basically these are just the players walk into a photo studio and they take the photograph, and then these particular photographs would be used for cards for about 10-year span. So you could have a photograph taken in 1905, and it could appear on a card, 10 years later. It's not uncommon for that to happen. Here's some example. This one here shows actually the Wagner in the bottom left. That's the original photograph. Mm-hmm. I can't remember the guy's last name. The photographer's name was Carl something, but that is the Wagner.
So the picture would be taken, and then artists would insert like a painting into the background and make the colors more vibrant, or what was the process?
They would basically layer colors. When they print it, different colors would be printed each time. They'd make different runs of different colors. Obviously, there wasn't digital printing back then,
Right.
so you'd have one pass of each color, then they'd run it again with the next set of colors. The basic, almost like a colorized photo is what it comes out to be. But yeah, there are some artistry involved.
So we have the somewhat action photos that you mentioned. We have the portrait photos. What were some other distinguishing characteristics of these tobacco cards?
Really, the backs is the big factor here. That's really what a lot of collectors also drives the price of these cards. And there's actually 15 different products in the backs of them. And I've showed a presentation. This is a mock-up. These are not real cards or real packs. Someone made replicas of them. But it gives you an idea of how small the packs of tobacco were and how they were presented. There is one tobacco brand, Polar Bear, which was chewing tobacco. So it was a pouch. And the cards are kind of tossed loosely in the pouch. You can still find cards today, over 110 years later, with tobacco stains on the cards of the Polar Bear cards. So that's a really neat aspect of some of those cards.
So in talking specifically about the T206 set, Brent, why was it given that name?
Well, it all really goes down to one man who was a fantastic collector of a ton of different cards. He not only collected baseball cards, he collected all cards. His name was Jefferson Burdick, and I put on the screen here a picture of Jefferson Burdick, and he created this thing called the American Card Catalog, where he cataloged all cards and identified them. So the T indicator is actually tobacco for the 20th century. If you use a tobacco card from the 19th century, the 1800s, it would have a letter N as in Nancy. So that's a big indicator there as far as his format. And where it came from, T206 or 206, that's just the numbering he came up with. There's T205, T204, T2. I think I have the entire run from T200 to T210. I don't have it. I'm missing one, but there is different cards and different baseball cards throughout those numbers. But the T206 is the granddaddy. That is the big one that most collectors will collect.
Is this catalog system still used in modern times?
The numbering system is definitely. I'm sure some of the other sets, as far as the non-sports, they're going to use the same numbers. Most people are resistant to change, especially collectors a little older. They want to know or go with what they know, and what they know is the numbering system that's in place.
So for individuals who collect these cards, what are some different ways that they go about collecting these? Is it just trying to get to the 200 or the 205?
Or 520?
520, excuse me.
Or the monster?
Yeah.
There are a ton of different ways to collect the set. A great example is team collecting. That's actually how I started. So I put on the screen my favorite team, the Tigers. That's the Tiger team set. There's 30 different Tigers, and that was my foray into this set. So I collected this set. I go, let me just get the Tigers, and then a few years later, I decided to tackle it all. The big team is the New York Giants. They have 53 different cards, and the Chicago Cubs at that time, 37. So the team the company is based out of New York, and there's a lot of, obviously, New York's where the action is. So there's obviously big New York bias, and of course Chicago, because right after the Cubs and the Tigers, you have the White Sox and the Highlanders, and the Highlanders is actually the Yankees.
Right.
So out of the big sets there, you have both the New York teams, as far as the Yankees and the Giants, and the Cubs and the White Sox, and the Tigers, of course. They just made it to the third World Series in 1909, so they were a top team. They were the American League champion for 3 straight years. So there's a reason that they're there. And then there's a big drop off from the White Sox and Yankees. You have 28 cards, and you have the Red Sox and Boston Doves drop all the way down to 14. So there's that's a great way. So if you just want your favorite team, or there's cities. So I live in the city of Atlanta. There's actually minor league team cards in the set. The Atlanta Crackers has 2 cards. So you can go even down to your small city. St. Paul has some cards. Baltimore, the minor league Baltimore team has a set. Shreveport. So there's all kinds of ways to collect a set. So team collecting is a really big one. Another big one that serious collectors really get into is collecting different backs. And this here is an example of Walter Johnson and someone. This is one of the collectors from that website is called Net54, and it shows you an example of the different backs you have, different brands of tobacco. And even within the same brand, such as the Piedmont, you could have multiple different backs for the Piedmont. You could have the 150 series or 350 series. And this really gets crazy. You get, you can do they call it a back run. So nowadays, collectors do different parallels, different colors, borders of the cards. You can do different backs for the tobacco cards. So it's the same kind of style collecting you have today. It's just different format.
Now, going back to the poses that you mentioned that were on these cards, was there enough of a variety for people to collect poses of players as well?
Most definitely. So some people collect just poses. There's throwing poses. The most popular pose people collect is the portraits. So some people would just go, I'll just get all the portrait cards, and I'm not really sure the exact number, but that's a great way to do it. You can just choose with a bat. Some people like the sunset in the background.
Yeah.
Or the horizontals. So there's 6 cards in a set that have horizontals. So they're basically a sideways, and those are great cards to have. They carry a little premium. They're a little pricier than the basic cards, though.
Now, in this set, Brent, were there future Hall of Famers that people were collecting?
Oh, most definitely. This set is packed with Hall of Famers. There's 76 Hall of Fame cards in the set. Some players have multiple appearances, and some of the Hall of Famers just have one. Tris Speaker, for example, just has with 1 card. Ty Cobb has 4. So there's many different ways to collect. You can just go for certain players. If you're a Christy Mathewson fan, he has 3 cards in the set, so that's a good way to go too.
So let's break it down then and talk about what are the rarest finds that you could hope to get in this set.
All right, so the rarest cards. So the rarest card is actually not the Honus Wagner. It is Joe Doyle, New York National. And I have a presentation on the screen there. You can kind of see the rare card actually says National on the bottom, right after New York. Mm-hmm. And the not rare one, it doesn't have it. There's only 9 known to exist. So this is extremely rare. The last one sold for $1.3 million in 2023. Wow. And I can guarantee that one will never sell because the University of Georgia has one. There was an old governor or senator from Georgia that was a big-time collector, and he donated his set to University of Georgia. And so they have one. It's never going to be sold. The man that discovered this error was actually Larry Fredish, a longtime dealer in the hobby. And he identified the error, I think, about 1980. And he kind of kept it to himself and kept putting feelers out there to try to buy as many as he could, try to find more of them. And he never really did. There's only 9, so they're hard to come by.
He knew what he was doing, creating some scarcity with that card.
I think he was trying to find more because he knew it was scarce. Definitely a way to make money if you're the only one that knows this card exists and you can find a second or third one. Then yeah, you're definitely in a good situation.
So you mentioned the Honus Wagner, the often considered, holy grail of this set is not the rarest. Is it the most expensive?
By far, it's the most expensive. Today, there's about 150, and I put some on the screen here. So I've shown 2 here. There's one here that sold for in 2020. Some just sold recently. I don't have this up here. This one sold for $7.5 million. It's condition 2. And this one on the bottom left is like a fraction of the card. It sold for just under $500,000.
Wow.
So that's not the most expensive one. Shown a picture here. This is the most expensive one that's sold to date. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. This is the in grade 5. So there is a card out there that was once owned by Wayne Gretzky, and it is in a PSA 8 slab. And that card is owned by the owner of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I don't think he's going to sell it anytime soon. But if that card ever came to market, that would shatter any kind of numbers of cards.
So we've got the Wagner, we've got the Doyle, like you mentioned, the Mathewson. What are some of the other rare examples, cards that would be considered very exciting to find if you were able to get your hands on one?
So the next one after Wagner is Eddie Plank, Gettysburg Eddie. He's a 300-game winner. Only about 100 of these cards are known to exist, and these sell from poor to very good condition, from 150,000 to 500,000. Wow! I have my slide says sale last night. I made the slide about 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. So one did sell a couple months ago for $240,000.
My goodness!
Yeah, there's a reason I don't have this card.
Anybody who says that collectibles is not a good way to diversify your investments is missing out here.
Oh, exactly. The Wagner card, for example, other than the one that's recently sold, because it sold 2 times, the same card sold twice in a matter of a year. Everybody made a bunch of money every time they sold the card. And then the final error card or final rare card is Sherry McGee. He's a outfielder for Philadelphia Phillies. About 200 of these are known to exist. And in poor condition, you're looking at low end at $10,000. Very good condition, you're looking at about $50,000. And the error is they misspelled his name. And it's not a big deal because there's a lot of misspellings within the set of players' names, mm-hmm. but they corrected it. And the corrected version is more common. So his name is spelled with 2 E's. The error version has MAGIE, which is an error.
Wow. Now, out of all the collectors you've met that are working on this set and tobacco card sets in general, who has come across or who has collected the most?
The most cards?
Yeah, I believe so, in this set.
Well, there's Keith Oberman. He had the whole set at one time.
Really?
And he actually had some cards that really never went to print in his set. So he claims there was up to 527 different cards he had. That would be the biggest as far as the fronts. Mm-hmm. Now, there are some collectors out there to get different backs, and they'll go through and they get different backs at the same players. Honestly, you could have thousands of different cards. I don't know what the exact number is, but if you had all the different backs and all the different players, that would be insane to even try to acquire. So I don't know anybody's even trying to do that.
You mentioned a lot of Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers in this set that are collectible. Is there one card in this set of someone who is just really, really good for the time period he played in that's not in the Hall of Fame that you can highlight?
Yeah, I can. So one player that has the highest WAR for non-Hall of Famers, and some people always talk about him as far as people that are really into sabermetrics and trying to talk about him being a potential Hall of Famer, is Bill Dolan. He has 2 cards in the set because he changed teams, went from the Boston National League team to the Brooklyn team. And his WAR is 75.3. He was a shortstop, and he's definitely Hall of Fame worthy if you compare him to other shortstops that are in the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
Based on that, his cards do carry a premium. Most collectors recognize his greatness. Also being, there's not a lot of both these cards. I believe one's a little rare, but there's such a rush for his cards right now that both of these cards have peaked in price. Mm-hmm. Some other players here, highest WAR for other Hall of Famers, Sherry McGee, who I recently showed, he has a 59.4 WAR. And there's, a slew of other players that have over 40. So there's, the set is packed with great players. Interesting guy is Ted Brettenstein. He's actually shown with New Orleans in the minor leagues. So he played in the majors through the 1800s into the early 1900s. But back in that time frame, these players, once they retired, they weren't making millions of dollars every year like they do nowadays. They just hung around and played in the minor leagues, and they had a little bit of a name, and they'd play into their mid to late 40s. They stayed in the game for as long as they could to make money off the game.
Are there any prominent players from the early 1900s that are missing from the T206 set?
Oh, definitely. So I have a slide here. Here's definitely some big players. Babe Adams is to me the biggest miss. So modern fans may not know, but he was a star pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates just won the World Series in 1909. He was a star pitcher. He had a 52.6 WAR, so he had a high WAR. He is not in the set. There's some other players, Jimmy Austin, a catcher for the Yankees or the Highlanders at the time. Eddie Grant, I think, is notable. He was actually a World War I veteran. He got died in the War of World War I. So I think it's kind of a notable player that he was actually in a parallel set or another set, tobacco set at time frame. He's not in the set. Some other players, Harry Hooper for the Boston Red Sox. He also has 50-plus WAR. And the big one everyone wants to see is Joe Shoeless Jackson. So he is in some other tobacco sets at the time. I've showed a picture here. He's with the New Orleans, the minor leagues, with that's a T210 set. So some people debate that he could never possibly be in it. I think upon further research, I think there's a slight possibility he could have been. But since he was a minor leaguer, it's not like he should have been in it. Another Pittsburgh pitcher, Sam Lever, 40-plus WAR. He should have been in it. And a big one that was really missed was the manager of the Philadelphia A's. So the set is filled with managers. There's probably about 6-8 managers already in the set, but they left out the great Connie Mack. So Connie Mack could have easily been in it. Another player is Smokey Joe Wood. He was definitely a player of that era that he should have been in it too. So there's definitely some players that, although they have a lot of the greats, pretty much all the greats, there's still a few that they missed.
Now, with your particular collection, what's the most meaningful card that you own? Not the one that's the most valuable, but the one that you'd go back to in a fire.
I can show my camera. So this is the card right here. It's a Ty Cobb card.
Look at that.
So this is also a tobacco card.
Yeah.
It's a T227. So there's this is pretty rare. It's a Bacchus. This has also tobacco brand, Miners Extra. And this is one of the rare backs for this particular card.
Yeah.
Has a write-up of his prowess as a player. But this is probably my favorite Ty Cobb card.
Now, what's the story behind you acquiring this one?
The funny thing is I actually had a poster of this exact card on my wall when I started getting back into cards about 2010. Mm-hmm. And this card popped up in an auction about 2013, and I just felt I had to have it. At the time, I spent a lot of money for it. I did all right, though, because I'm sure I could sell it today and for much more than I paid for it.
Right.
So that was really the thing. I thought it was a really cool picture of Ty Cobb, and I wanted to have it, so I acquired it.
Have you ever traded or sold a card and then immediately regretted it?
Not immediately. So I will say one way I actually funded, because this is a lot of money to buy these cards. When COVID hit, I started selling my Topps cards. I had all the Hall of Fame Topps players. I even had the 52 Topps Mantle. I had the 52 Topps Willie Mays, some premier cards, and I've sold them all. At the time, I had a lot of extra money because all these cards were going through, or all the cards were being sold, and I ended up buying T206 cards. And that's really what springboarded me to actually chasing the set and finishing it. Was the sale of other cards led me to actually work on this set.
And Brent, you're doing something really cool by sharing these cards on TikTok. Like I said, when I came across it just organically, I was fascinated by looking at all the different players and all the different artistic approaches from these different cards. What got you started with collecting?
I started collecting as a small kid. There was a store right behind our house. I grew up near Detroit, a small city called Warren, and this was 1980. I was 11 years old, and I went to the store, and there's a pack of baseball cards for 25 cents, and that was the moment. And then from then, it never stopped. Well, I guess it stopped sometime in the mid 90s when I became my 20s, and then I had children. So I did take a gap there from my mid 20s to through my 30s. And I'm already 40. So yeah, so you take a little bit of a break, but that really what got me. And I got into baseball through the cards, and the statistics on the back fascinated me. And to this day, I still think some of the cards are just works of art. It's been very rewarding. The chase of collecting cards and completing sets to me is very rewarding. It's a chase. It's a goal you work toward, and as long as people don't spend too much money and, dig into money they should not be spending, there's always ways to collect. You don't have to buy expensive cards. When I was younger, I didn't have much money. I I bought, the cheaper cards. So, the time will come when you have the money to buy the more expensive cards. Until then, buy what you want to buy.
What's been the reaction and feedback? What's it been like from folks who are seeing these cards for the first time on social media?
I've got some really good feedback. Some people will comment on the T206 cards I post, sometimes identifying some of the pictures because the players are wearing sweaters. So they'll identify, why they're wearing the sweater. Or I'll post something and they'll post a fact I did not know of, readily know about that player. Mm-hmm. So it's always a give and take, and I've learned a lot, and I believe I've shared a lot of knowledge and information about the cards.
Have you found younger collectors getting into the T206 collecting that set, or just collecting tobacco cards in general?
Most definitely. I was really big on TikTok for a while, or not TikTok, Twitter for a while. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of collectors. There's quite a large baseball card group there. And we were all the older collectors with older cards. And some of the younger kids were definitely getting into it. Something different, versus buying a pack of cards. And, nowadays it's almost like a lottery where if you get the one card that hits big, you've scored, but if you haven't, right, you've kind of lost out. So this is kind of a safer way to go. You'll still spend some money, but, if you ever need to sell down the road, you shouldn't lose too much, if any at all.
What's been the most popular WoW card that you've shared online that's gotten the most feedback and reaction?
So a lot of collectors of this card I just showed you earlier, the Ty Cobb, will definitely identify that. No collectors that would know that's a tough card to have. As far as the T206 cards, it's usually the big cards. It's the Ty Cobb cards that are the big ones. Like I say, Ace Head 4. I haven't come to the presentation of my TikToks where I actually show the Cy Youngs because I'm going alphabetically, and Cy Young will be near the end. But Cy Young's another big one. We always hear the name of the award, but there's a player behind it, and he actually has 3 cards in the set.
Now, if someone's listening who wants to start collecting tobacco cards, where do you recommend they start?
There's a lot of different ways. To me, really easy online. There's different websites that you can easily go to. I believe there's ones, I don't have the names off the top of my head. I'm sorry about that. Net54 is a group of collectors, Net54 Baseball. But I will say they're very protective of the website and a little restricted as far as who comes into the site. But if you're able to make it in, if you're a respectable collector, you show yourself to be a stand-up person, they will let you in there. Oldbaseballcards.com, they have a great information, just basic facts about old sets. Trading card database, tcdb.com. They give you a snippet of the cards. They're great for checklists as far as the cards. That's a great resource to have. But honestly, if you just look online, if you Google about the T206 and some of these videos, the presentation I've done with you here, I've done another talk on this exact set late last year with another collector, Dan's Vintage Baseball Cards on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So there are different avenues out there. Back in the day, you'd have to go to the library, which you could probably still do, but there's enough information at your fingertips to just Google the T206 set and to find information about the set.
So for those of you that are on TikTok, you got to follow Brent. The channel name is Brewing Cards, one word, all lowercase. Brent, how could people get in touch with you, be able to ask further questions if they're interested, in addition to the TikTok channel?
So I actually have a Instagram also, same name, Brewing Cards. Mm-hmm. Both sources, if you send me a message, even if you're not a follower, and it's related to baseball cards, I will respond. I may not see them right away because I don't get the same kind of notifications. Those are definitely 2 different ways. I'm also on Bluesky under Brewing Cards also, or maybe, Brewing Cards. Those are the best ways to get in contact with me. And if you ask questions about the cards and some basic stuff, I'll be readily willing to answer questions. I won't get into the category of if you show me a card, what's it worth? Right. Because it's so subjective. So that's one area where I won't really get into. I will lead you some ways to kind of find an idea or maybe possibly give you a range, but I'll never pinpoint exact price.
This has been wildly educational for me, Brent. I appreciate you coming on the show and making the time to be able to talk more about tobacco cards.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. I really appreciate this time we've had together and to discuss these cards. They are definitely a passion of mine, and maybe they'll be a passion for someone else down the road.
Thanks for joining us for this episode as we explored another amazing moment from baseball history. You can help grow the show by liking us on YouTube and your podcast app of choice. Don't forget to head on over and sign up for the free email newsletter and the bonus show, This Week in Baseball History. Just go to www.rounders.substack.com. A special thanks to our premium subscribers that are helping us grow for just $1.25 a week, and to our starting 9 supporters, Nathan Halverson and Jack Wilson. You are the producers helping make this the top baseball history show out there. See you next week, and remember, there are only 2 seasons, winter and baseball.